In this life, the heaviest burdens are not the ones we carry with our hands, but the ones that weigh heavily on our hearts. Only when we learn to let go can everything become lighter, like a gentle breeze sweeping through the soul. The story begins in a peaceful monastery, where a young monk had recently joined. Despite living in a place of stillness, his heart could find no peace. His past was a long string of painful memories, family conflicts, childhood hardships, and persistent failures that haunted his mind. They were like ghosts, unwilling to leave, making him feel constantly uneasy. Though the monastery was a sanctuary of serenity, the young monk felt as if everything was wrong. He saw trouble everywhere, even where there was none. His mind was trapped in a whirlwind of relentless thoughts. The past constantly resurfaced, intertwining with present worries, turning even the simplest things into complications. He asked himself, "Why can't I find peace? Why does the past cling to me so tightly?" The more he thought, the more exhausted he became, as if an invisible boulder was pressing down on his shoulders. At last, unable to bear it any longer, he decided to seek help from his master. With a voice full of despair, he said, "Master, I'm exhausted. The past never leaves me. I keep thinking about what has happened, what is happening. I can't find a moment of peace. What should I do?" The master smiled gently, his eyes filled with understanding. He didn't rush to respond, but softly said, "Come with me." And so began the young monk's journey to seek an answer, unfolding a profound lesson about letting go. The young monk could no longer bear the burden in his heart. Exhausted and in despair, he sought out his master, hoping to find a way out. "Master," he said, his voice trembling, "I'm so tired. The past clings to me like a shadow that won't fade. The old memories, the present worries, they spin endlessly in my mind. I can't find any peace. What should I do?" The master looked at him, his gentle eyes filled with understanding. He smiled softly, not rushing to reply, then calmly said, "That's what I do, dude, to meet fitness, alive in your shit. Come with me." The master led the young monk out of the monastery, stepping into the open space outside. He raised his hand and pointed toward a distant hill, where the soft sunlight touched a small, humble hut. "Do you see that hut on the hilltop?" he asked. "There lives an old monk, the most seasoned among us. Many years ago, he left the monastery to live in solitude, seeking stillness through meditation. If you want answers, go to him. He will show you the way." The master's words were like a beam of light piercing through the darkness, igniting hope within the young monk's heart. He felt a surge of motivation, as if the answer he had long yearned for was finally within reach. "Can I go now? I can't wait any longer," he asked eagerly. The master nodded, his gaze calm and steady. Without hesitation, the young monk set off immediately. He left the monastery, stepping onto the sloping path that led down the hill, heading toward the distant mountain. The journey was not easy. The road was long and uneven, but he didn't waver. In his mind, there was only one thought: to meet the old monk and discover the way to free himself from the pain that held him captive. With every step, he hoped he was drawing closer to the freedom he so deeply longed for. After receiving directions from his master, the young monk began his journey. He left the monastery, making his way down the rugged, sloping path at the foot of the hill, then set out toward the distant mountain where the old monk lived in seclusion. The journey was far from easy. The path was long and strewn with stones, and the scorching sun wore him down. Yet a burning desire for answers fueled his steps, and he pressed on despite the fatigue. After a long and challenging trek, he finally arrived at the small hut on the hilltop. The humble dwelling sat quietly amidst the stillness, as if it had become one with nature. Inside, the old monk was sitting in meditation, his eyes closed, his face radiating calm and serenity. The young monk stood silently, not daring to interrupt. Time passed slowly, and at last the old monk opened his eyes. His gaze was gentle and deep, as if he could see straight into the pain of the one before him. The young monk quickly bowed. Then, unable to hold back, he spoke out. "Master, please help me. My mind is filled with painful memories. The past won't let me go. It torments me every moment. I want to be free from this suffering. I want to be free." His voice trembled, carrying a mix of desperation and hope. He spoke of sleepless nights and days when his soul was torn apart by the past. Harsh words from family, failures that had once brought him to his knees. He looked at the old monk, waiting for an answer, a path that could lead him out of the spiral of suffering. The old monk listened quietly, never interrupting, only nodding gently in understanding. He smiled kindly, his warm eyes seeming to ease the unease in the young monk's heart. Silence filled the space, and the young monk felt a fragile glimmer of hope, as if, perhaps, the answer he had been seeking was finally close. After hearing the young monk pour out his heart, the old monk smiled gently, his eyes filled with compassion. He didn't answer right away, but softly said, "I will give you the answer, but first come with me to the village below. A disciple there has invited us for lunch." The young monk nodded, his heart filled with hope. He thought that perhaps, through this journey, he would find the key to freeing his soul. As they were about to leave, the old monk suddenly picked up a large, heavy stone, placed it in front of the young monk, and said, "Take this stone with you." The young monk hesitated, not understanding the meaning behind this strange request. The stone was so large that he had to lift it with both hands, and the moment he placed it on his shoulder, he could immediately feel the crushing weight. Even so, he didn't dare to question it. He simply followed in silence. The two began their descent down the mountain. The path was steep, uneven, and scattered with slippery stones. At first, the young monk tried to walk steadily, telling himself that this might be a test, a part of the lesson the old monk intended to teach. He gritted his teeth and endured, determined not to give up. But it wasn't long before the weight of the stone began to wear him down. His shoulders ached, his arms trembled, and each step grew heavier. Sweat streamed down his forehead and soaked through his robes. Yet he still didn't let go. He glanced over at the old monk, who walked lightly and calmly, without any burden on his shoulders. The contrast puzzled him, but he told himself, "If the master told me to carry this, there must be a reason." Though exhausted, he pressed on, hoping that the destination would bring the answer he so deeply yearned for. The road ahead was still long, and the stone seemed to grow heavier with every step he took. The young monk continued his journey down the mountain, his shoulders straining beneath the weight of the stone. At first, he carried a glimmer of hope, believing that this burden might hold some deeper meaning, a lesson the old monk intended for him to realize on his own. He walked with determination, trying to keep his spirit strong despite the steep, rugged path that challenged him at every step. But it wasn't long before his body began to resist. His arms trembled, his muscles tensed painfully, and beads of sweat rolled down his pale face. His legs shook with every step, and the stone seemed to grow heavier with time. He glanced at the old monk ahead. The elder walked effortlessly, calm and composed, unhindered by any weight. His ease stood in stark contrast to the suffering the young monk was enduring. The young monk wanted to drop the stone, to cry out that he couldn't go on, but one thought held him back. If this is my master's lesson, I must endure it. To give up would be to fail. So he clenched his teeth and dragged himself forward, even as each meter felt like an ordeal. The stone wasn't just weighing down his shoulders. It threw off his balance, and he nearly stumbled multiple times on the slippery path. At last, when they reached the foot of the mountain, he was nearly spent. His legs trembled, barely able to hold him up. His breathing was heavy, and pain coursed through his entire body. He set the stone down and tried to stand upright, but his body seemed unwilling to obey. Looking up, he saw the old monk sitting beneath a tree, smiling gently, his eyes calm and waiting. That smile left the young monk both confused and curious. He wondered, why is he smiling? I've suffered so much. So what's the lesson? The grueling journey had come to an end, but the answer still lingered, a mystery within his heart. When the young monk set the stone down at the foot of the mountain, he was nearly exhausted, his breath ragged, his body aching. He looked at the old monk sitting beneath the tree, the gentle smile on the elder's face, filling him with both surprise and confusion. Using what little strength he had left, he stepped forward and asked, his voice broken by fatigue, "Master, why are you smiling? I'm in so much pain. This stone made the journey so miserable. Please, tell me what the lesson is." The old monk looked up, his gaze calm and kind, unhurried. He asked in a warm, steady voice, "How was your journey?" "It was terrible, master," the young monk replied, weary and worn. "The stone was too heavy. It made everything harder. I could barely endure it." The old monk nodded, as if he had expected the answer. He continued, his voice soft but profound. "Then why didn't you put it down?" The young monk froze, stunned as if turned to stone. He stammered, But you told me to carry it." The old monk smiled, his eyes glinting with quiet wisdom. "I told you to pick it up. I never said you had to carry it the whole way. You could have set it down at any time, but you chose to carry it, thinking it was required." The monk's words pierced through the fog in the young man's mind like a ray of light. Suddenly, he understood a simple yet profound truth. It was he who had imprisoned himself in pain, he who had chosen to bear a burden that was never truly necessary. The old monk looked at him with compassionate eyes, as if encouraging him to reflect more deeply. The young monk stood there, his breathing slowly calming, but his heart was a storm of mixed emotions, surprise, embarrassment, and a hint of relief. The answer he had long searched for was finally beginning to reveal itself. though he knew it would take more time to fully grasp its meaning. After the old monk's words, the young monk stood in silence, his mind suddenly awakened. The old monk continued, his voice warm, yet full of strength. This journey is much like your life. That stone represents your past, the painful memories, the regrets, the worries you've carried for so long. They are what have made your life feel heavy and difficult. But just like that stone, you can put them down at any moment. When you let go, you'll find your heart light and free. Why choose to suffer when you don't have to? Those words were like a gentle breeze sweeping through the young monk's soul. He looked at the stone lying quietly on the ground, then instinctively touched his shoulder, still sore from the weight it had borne. Without hesitation, he bent down and pushed the stone away. As it thudded against the earth with a dull sound, he felt an extraordinary sense of release. Not only did his shoulders feel lighter, but it was as if the invisible burden on his heart had also been lifted. Silent tears streamed down his cheeks, not from sorrow, but from the deep truth he had just discovered. The old monk placed a hand gently on his shoulder and said softly, "The past is already gone. The only thing keeping it alive is you. Let it go, and peace will come." Those words lit up the lost path within him like a lantern in the dark. He looked up at the old monk with infinite gratitude. In that moment, he understood that freedom doesn't come from holding on, but from the courage to let go. The stone was now just an ordinary object, but the lesson it carried had changed him forever. A feeling of serenity slowly spread through him, like the first light of dawn breaking through the morning mist. That day, the young monk learned the most valuable lesson of his life. Freedom doesn't come from holding on, but from letting go. We often carry the burdens of the past, pain, regret, failure, as if they are things we are obligated to hold on to. The young monk had done the same, carrying the weight of memories that crushed his spirit day after day. But through the journey with the stone, he realized a profound truth. We have the power to put it down at any time. Just as he had suffered while carrying the stone down the mountain, we too cause our own suffering by clinging to things that no longer serve us. The past only holds power when we allow it to. The young monk understood that if he kept holding on, he would forever live in the shadow of pain. But the moment he chose to let go, everything changed. Life suddenly became lighter, like the sky after a storm, clear, fresh, and full of hope. He felt a true sense of freedom, not from the outside, but from deep within. That lesson was not his alone. It is a truth meant for all of us. Everyone carries their own stones. And we often believe we must bear them forever. But the truth is, we don't have to. When we release what no longer serves us, life becomes easier, more beautiful. The young monk found peace by letting go, and we can do the same. Let the past rest where it belongs, and walk forward with a light heart. Peace will come, like a natural gift, when we are brave enough to let go. That is the power of release. It opens the way for a new journey filled with light.